if scientists don't get caught up in their own old theories and learn that it's okay to be wrong sometimes, a true scientist can become the spiritual masters of the West. Find out in this episode. Namaste. Hello, my fellow life inquisitors, and thank you for joining me on another Power Interpretation with Blu Yogi. So, I've noticed that I've been talking a lot about inclusiveness and how our natural selves are. But I haven't been really talking about, well, a little bit I talked about, but I wanted to talk about a little bit more today. Basically, how to beat our mind at its own game, right? Because most of us, well, I've noticed, at least with me, when my mind starts producing stuff, aka those thoughts of, man, that person just really did something wrong to you, or man, you don't need to take that from that person. I find it's very hard to overcome that, so to speak. All right, and I wanted to talk about that today. And I've noticed that curiosity is a very powerful ego mind defense mechanism. What do I mean by that? If we're in control of our own thoughts and our own emotions, we can get triggered by other people. We can get triggered by other events. We can get triggered by the thought that this bill needs to be taken care of, so I'm just going to do what I got to do. Because I hear that a lot, right? I'm just do what I got to do, Blue. F that. So I hear that a lot. And which is cool. It's good to get through something, but how we get through it, that's what matters. You get through it, but it's how we get through it. That's what matters. And I wanted to talk about what that is. And what that is a habit, right? So if we've been used to doing something or hearing something a certain way, we can get in the habit of doing something a certain way. And I just want to note, what a habit is. Because a habit is, well, how we talk about it a lot, especially in the West, a habit is something that we're unconsciously doing, okay? So a habit is a settled or regular tendency or practice. It's a settled or regular tendency or practice, right? So that means you're not choosing it. So I'm going off the definition. A habit is a settled or regular tendency or practice, especially one that is hard to give up. Okay? Something that's hard to give up is something that is unconsciously happening, okay? And then the second definition, it says a long, loose, oh, never mind, you don't do the closed version. I didn't know there was a closed version. Okay, so a settled or regular tendency or practice, especially one that is hard to give up. So how do we combat that, right? I don't know if you guys seen Happy Feet, but there's a part in Happy Feet where Happy Feet is about these penguins that was trying to get this, help this one other penguin get food to his village. That's the short version. But these three penguins, played by Robin Williams, the great. So one of the scenes was these three penguins have to jump off a cliff, and it looks scary as hell. I'm like, it's a long cliff down in the ocean, and this one penguin who's trying to get fish for his family had to dive down and go explore this new territory, which is the ocean, and he had to jump. And the other penguins wasn't about that life. Well, one of them really wasn't. The other ones was like, oh, well, he did it, let's do it, right? So they just dove in. So that's one way. Just have faith, go and trust yourself, right? So that's one way to break habit. Go against whatever that thought or emotion or situation is. And the other version is you got to trick your mind. So this last penguin, he was the last one. The other ones, they're already down. It was like a slide. It turned out to be a slide, not like just some jumping down thing. So he hears him, woo! And he looks down and then he goes, okay, on three. And then he turns around away from it. He goes, 1, 2, and then he just lets himself fall. And then he goes, 3, right? So sometimes you could trick your mind that way, right? So life is about that sometimes. You got to trick your mind into doing the right thing because a habit, it's settled. It's a regular tendency that you do all the time. And if we don't figure out a way to overcome that somehow, it's going to be our natural practice. And I've said in the past episode, my son, he's been teaching me a lot of how to first approach something because I was in the military for 8.5 years and I don't like bullshit basically, but I like to remain humble and I like to remain kind to my peers. So my first thought usually is like, what the fuck? Like I'm from Chicago too, and I got raised, with a like a no BS attitude type of mom. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of my natural tendencies are, why'd you just do that, stupid? Like that's literally what I say in my head, but I can't say that to my work employees and stuff because they're doing their thing for whatever reasons they're doing, right? And my son, he's been teaching me a lot because he's not a work employee, he's my son. It's like parents, we start sometimes going, you were supposed to listen to me, but they're their own entity, right? So if you really care about this life form that you're breeding here, I think it's smart to understand that if you can learn how to talk to your child or your parent or your spouse, the first response is kindness, humility, respect, compassion, empathy, vulnerability, transparent, then you'll be able to do that in the world anywhere. Because they are the sun. They're close to the sun, right? They're the thing that you... I went over that in the past episode. So I just want to say, how do we break habits? That's what this episode is all about. How do we trick our mind, right? And I want to challenge this conversation by saying, the scientist is the new spiritual teacher right now, okay? In the West, we're very external people. So we like to look at how small an atom can get, how big a star can get, how big a planet is, how wide, how vast is the universe, right? So the scientist is the new curiosity explorer. The one thing that I appreciate about a true scientist is a scientist has this thing called a scientific method. And I remember going through school and going like, the scientific method is pretty dope. Like that is one way that you could learn how to dispel your own. So I did this as a youngin', right? I was like, this is a way I can learn how to dispel my own thoughts that I don't think is serving me or the things around me, and my own emotions that I don't think is serving me and the things around me. And the scientific method, by definition, the scientific method is a method of acquiring knowledge that has characterized the development of science since at least the 17th century. Well, that's not the definition. Okay, well I'll just go into like what it is. So it's a series of steps to collect information or solve a problem. Okay, so it's a series of steps, scientific method, a series of steps to collect information or solve problems, and it has 5 steps. Step 1, observation. So you observe that emotion, that thought. You got to observe it. So if you're not able to observe it, that's where in the past episode I broke down how to be the observer. Look at the episode, observe, don't absorb, right? So you got to be able to observe Sorry, you observe, don't absorb. Sorry, I say what it be. So observation, number one. And then you come up with a hypothesis. Okay, so that thought came up. It came up because that person did me wrong. Okay, so that's, it came up because of a past trauma, which is usually what it's actually connected to. Go to, that's not my field. I'm not a psychiatrist or anything, but go talk to a psychiatrist. It usually comes from trauma when you're being rude to somebody or yourself. So observation, number one. Step two, hypothesis. You got to come up with why that thought or emotion is there, or event. And then you have to experimentation. So let me practice this thought with other people to see what happens if I go this way or that way. All right? I hope that makes sense. And then you got to analyze the data. So step 4 is data analyze. So you got to analyze how the people were taking it. Okay, well, 50 or 60% took it this way, 40% took it that way. Okay, 80% took it that way. All right, 20% took it that way. And then you come up with a conclusion. Well, since 80% took it that way, then maybe I could do it this way. So the scientific method, actually, you can use that with your own thoughts and emotions, okay? And I want to say how I was able to do that, because this is where it gets kind of independent individuals. Curiosity was the thing that I think I remained on to as a child, from a child. Like, if my son came in here right now, he would ask 1,000 questions. He would be like, Dad, what is this tripod? He wouldn't say tripod because he don't know what it is. He'd be like, what is that? What is that for? I'd be like, tripod. What is it doing? Well, it's holding up the camera. Why is it holding up the camera? And then you just keep going. What's a camera? Well, it's a thing to take pictures. You already know that. Well, how does this one work? Because it looks different than mom's phone or whatever, right? So curiosity is a natural thing that's in us. What's this, Dad? He'll like point at a worm. Somebody else will freak out, but he'll be like, ooh, he'll pick it up and like look at it and examine it. Ants, we can just sit and watch ants for literally 30 minutes. We can sit and watch ants for 30 minutes every day, okay? Sometimes longer. He likes motors and stuff. We will sit and watch somebody mow a lawn just back and forth until they're done, if he could, So curiosity is something that is naturally ingrained in us, but why do we lose it, and how do we get that natural curiosity back if we have stuff piled onto our mind and our emotions already, okay? Because going back to what a habit is something that is a settled or regular tendency. You can't have a settled tendency unless you either practiced it a couple times, or, like I said before, a lot of our distastefulness for other things come from trauma or something that we were wanting to reject as a child. Because when parents when parents force their kids, or if we force our kids to do something, think about when you were growing up. If you're older, right? Think about when you were growing up. Didn't you just want to do the opposite of what they said? Like, don't go outside. Don't go do that. Don't do that. Weren't you just like, oh, I'm kind of curious about that now. And then you just want to go see what's up with that. And it's not because of disobedience. It's just because we have a natural curiosity and a natural individualness in us that no human being likes to be told what to do. So a natural rebelliousness occurs because, I don't know if these are words, by the way, but you guys get what I'm saying, hopefully. A natural rebelliousness occurs because somebody is trying to take my individual freedom away from me, right? So how do we gain that natural curiosity back? And let's just look up what curious is. Curious definition is eager to know or learn something, okay? So we have to have an eagerness to learn why that thought or that emotion came up. Otherwise, you can't defeat it. Okay? And usually a habit comes from a type of compulsion, okay? So I have a compulsive reaction to something, and that's when it just remains a habit. Okay? So something had happened, and then it just comes out. My son, it doesn't matter what it is, um, he'll say, I love this, I love this. And I'm trying to teach him, like, you don't have to say you love everything, just appreciate everything for what it is when it's in front of you. Because he's, naturally is marking those tendencies of like, just do an experiment. Notice somebody who says, even yourself, all right, even myself, I've done this with myself before. I told myself that I liked something or didn't like something because of my mom, for instance. When we were growing up, she didn't like tomatoes or mushrooms, right? So I told myself I didn't like mushrooms or tomatoes because my mom never ate them, and she used to make horrible faces when we talked about it or when it was on something. And as a kid, our taste buds kind of want sweets a lot, right? Unless the parent nurtures that taste bud to do something else. So my compulsive reaction to tomatoes and mushrooms up until I was about, I don't know, in my 20s, I didn't like tomatoes or mushrooms, but now I think they're awesome. But compulsion, right? It's the action or state of forcing or being forced to do something, okay? Compulsion. It's the action or state of forcing or being forced to do something, and it feels very constrained. And then the second definition, an irresistible urge to behave in a certain way. An irresistible urge to behave in a certain way, especially against one's own conscious wishes. See, it has the word conscious in there again, right? So it goes against your actual true nature. Like if I actually just sat and did the scientific method to my mom's thought process at that moment, I probably wouldn't have hated tomatoes and mushrooms most of my childhood and going into my adult life, right? But it took that long for me to just be like, you know what, I am going to try it. Because I remember my mom also saying, try everything once before you say no. So I allowed that to be my new truth, so to speak. So I created that curiosity through that one other quote that my mom said. I just saw her not trying and doing it, so I was like, oh well, she only listed that quote. Let me try that quote out because I think it's actually a good quote. So I tried it when I got older, and I was like, this ain't bad at all. And then I just kept eating. Now, like I said, I eat it now. And I just want to break down, like, how do we do that? We gotta create like a yearning for truth, whatever truth is to you. Okay, truth is not your habit. Truth is not your compulsion. All right, as we just broke down, truth is a natural state. That. Well, and how I'm defining it right now, I'll look up the actual definition again. But it's like that place of, I don't want to be fooled by my own thoughts, emotions, and things around me because, like I said in another past episode, we went over that the five senses aren't like truth. They lie to us, okay? So, but what is the definition of truth? The quality or state of being true. To which that which is true or in accordance with fact or reality. Reality is that our five senses lie to us, all right? And our brains and our emotions lie to us sometimes if we don't observe it. Observe it. Okay? So you got to create a yearning for curiosity. You got to create a yearning for truth. Like I really yearn and I'm so curious about knowing what this thing actually is. But if you don't become the observer, you'll never get there. Okay? I hope that makes sense. And yearning is a feeling or intense longing for something. A feeling or intense longing for something. Okay? So, long for the truth. This is the end. I just want to say, because I'm trying to end this in 20 minutes. Because comment, subscribe, like. Let me know what you thought about this. Become the observer of your thought and create that curiosity. Destroy your compulsions. Namaste and have a beautiful day. All right.